Hey, I'm Hunt, and this is Hunt on LSU, your channel for LSU Fighting Tiger football talk. Enjoy the video. We want you to leave a comment below, hit that like button, and subscribe right below the video. Enjoy. I want to start with something that we haven't talked about yet this week, and it is the matchup of strengths of these two teams. It is the LSU offense and this Alabama defense. I think that is the headliner in this game, and it's a war of two of the best units in college football. You know what LSU has done offensively, and I'm sure you've got a pretty good idea of what Alabama has been defensively. I'll give you their Southeastern Conference ranks at this point in the season. In scoring defense, they're second in the conference. LSU is the number one scoring offense in the conference. Run defense, they are fourth in the SEC. LSU is second in rushing offense. Pass defense, Alabama's number 3 in the conference. LSU's best. Total defense, Alabama's number 3. LSU is best. Third down defense, Alabama number 6 in the conference, so closer to the middle of the pack. LSU's the best on third down offense. And in 20-plus yard plays allowed from scrimmage, Alabama is third in the SEC, and LSU is the best. But you pretty much knew that. You know that Alabama has fielded a very, very good defense under Nick Saban, and you know that LSU's offense has been firing on all cylinders since they got back from Orlando. I think they were really good in the first half of that game against Florida State. They were not good in the second half against Florida State. And that is where I saw some interesting statistics in this game. It's the second half of games where LSU has been so good on offense and Alabama has been so good on defense. Now, something that I got from the Manning cast, which is the Manning brothers, Eli and Peyton every Monday Night Football, that I found very, very interesting because those guys would know a lot better than me. They both agreed that there was a myth about halftime adjustments. Peyton, in a very condescending tone, was like, that's the news to me, halftime adjustments. Halftime, you go in there, you eat an orange, you go pee, and you put your helmet on, you go back out for the second half. That's halftime. I don't know. I have never one time in my life been in a high school, college, or pro locker room at halftime. I don't know what goes on in there. You could tell me there are clipboards being broken, plays drawn up on a dry erase board. There's people in there that just want to go to the bathroom and get a sandwich. There's people calling their moms. I don't know what goes on in the locker room at halftime. But one thing that people that talk about football love to talk about is halftime adjustments. They made the adjustment. I often balk at that because unless you can tell me what the adjustment was, I need more color to. Well, they made the adjustments and you didn't. I don't love that explanation. I think it's oftentimes lazy without basis in fact. Maybe one team just played a lot better in the second half. Maybe they just did what they were trying to do in the first half better. I don't know. So I'm not going to sit here and tell you that Bama defensively is great at making adjustments or that LSU offensively is great at making adjustments, but I will lay out statistically what these two teams have done. LSU offensively in the second half was not good against Florida State. They had 5 drives, only scored 1 touchdown, the long pass to Brian Thomas after they'd given up 31 straight points and it was decided. They only scored 7 points in the second half of that game. But you look at the 5 SEC games LSU has played. Well, against Mississippi State, they had 4 drives, 2 touchdowns, and 1 field goal in those 4 drives that resulted in 17 second half points. Very good. Against Arkansas, 3 touchdowns and a field goal on 4 drives. 24 points. Scored every time you got the football against Arkansas. Ole Miss, you had 5 second-half drives. 3 of them resulted in touchdowns. You had a punt and then the last one where you ran out of time. So in that game, you scored 21 points in the second half. That's great. Missouri, you had 6 offensive drives in the second half. 3 touchdowns and a field goal. That is 24 offensive points. Plus LSU had a pick 6. I'm not giving them credit for that one offensively. But to score 4 out of 6 drives and score 24 points offensively is very, very good in the second half. And then against Auburn, 4 drives, 4 touchdowns. I don't have to tell you, that's pretty good. 28 points on Auburn's defense. So when you put all that together and you look at their drives against Florida State, Mississippi State, Arkansas, Ole Miss, Missouri, and Auburn, that's 28 total second-half drives. They've scored 16 touchdowns on those, which is 57% touchdown rate in the second half. They have 2 field goals sprinkled in. So you're talking about 3 field goals. So you're talking about a scoring rate of about 67% of your drives in the second half, you're getting points. In the SEC, in second halves, LSU is averaging 22.8 points per game. That is better than 3 touchdowns per second half against SEC teams. That is exceptional work. Again, I don't know if Mike Denbrock's getting in there and carving it up on the dry erase board with Jayden Daniels, or he's making a bunch of notes, or I don't know how that's going. I don't know if Brad Davis is getting in there and getting his offensive line figured out and seeing what, but they're scoring a lot of points in the second half any way you slice it. And Alabama's defense is not allowing that, at least not very often. You look at the Crimson Tide in the second half of games. South Florida, in a close game, didn't score. Ole Miss scored 3 points in the second half. Mississippi State, 7 points in the second half. A&M, who got a first-half lead, scored 3 points in the second half. Arkansas scored 15. They climbed back into that game after it looked long decided. But Tennessee went to the locker room up 13. They got a bagel in the second half. Did not score a point. Alabama is allowing 7 points per game in the second half, and that is including Texas dropping 21 on them. It can be done. Quinn Ewers in Texas went out there and scored 21 points. You can do it. But Nick Saban has done a really, really good job in the second half of these games. That defense has done a really, really good job in the second half of these games. Now, I can ask former players, and I will ask Brandon Taylor and Marlon Favorite on my pregame show on Saturday, what you think about halftime adjustments and doing things in the second half. My assumption is, based on very brief conversations with college football coaches. I don't know a lot of college football coaches, but I do talk to one I'm talking to Mike Denbrock tomorrow morning. Just full disclosure, I go in there. I'm in there for 4 minutes. I say, Coach, I'm here with the LSU Sports Radio Network pregame show. I got about a 3-minute interview. I'll let you get back to work. All right, bang, we start going. I don't talk about anybody's family or golf games or what they had for dinner last night or what their Christmas plans are. Like, it's very, very, I'm trying to get out of their way on a Friday morning of game week. But I have talked to coaches over the years. I've been doing this for 7 years. And I feel like you have a plan going in. So does the other team. You kind of look at it. And I do think you make some tweaks. You don't make wholesale changes at halftime. I've only seen that happen one time that I noticed. And that was LSU against Troy in the Matt Canada year, where Ogeron told him stop motioning. And they stopped motioning in the second half. And they lost to Troy. But I think there is something to these two teams having excellent personnel, LSU's offense and Alabama's defense, having excellent coaching. I don't think anybody would argue that Mike Denbrock, Joe Sloan, and this offensive staff is not doing an excellent job. Nick Saban's a brilliant defensive coach. And I think there is some chess that goes on in the second half, and I'm impressed by both of those numbers. I'm impressed that LSU can come out against Auburn and score a touchdown on all 4 drives. I'm impressed that LSU could come out up against it on the road against Ole Miss and come up with 21 points in the second half. I'm impressed that Alabama, in the second half, after getting punched in the mouth by Joe Milton, throwing hitch routes, then the deep ball for a touchdown, punching in a touchdown late to the tight end in that first half, under a minute to go, and they came out in the second half and said, all right, this is what we're doing. You're not going to stop us. And they put Tennessee in a blender and shut them out. So I can't tell you what Saban did at halftime or what Alabama did at halftime of that game. I can't tell you what LSU did to create these flurries of points in the second half or what they didn't do against Florida State. That's not the point of the discussion. The point of the discussion is, I believe, this is enough evidence at this point in the schedule to say these two teams know what they're doing once they get into a flow of a game, and that is even more interesting to me than the totality of the game is what can these two teams do after both teams coming off a bye who throw some things in there that you may not have seen all year, who figures it out most quickly, and what can LSU do offensively in the second half against that Alabama defense. I think that is fascinating, fascinating stuff. And my gut tells me, I haven't come up with a pick yet, and we'll do that on Friday's show. My gut tells me that this is going to be a close game in the second half. And whatever team throws that punch at the right time in the fourth quarter, who has that call, who makes that play, that might be the difference. right now, as I sit here on Thursday, I don't see LSU running away from Alabama with that high-powered offense and Alabama's offensive struggles continuing against a subpar LSU defense, and LSU wins the game 45-28. I don't see that. I don't see Alabama putting the clamps on LSU's offense like they did Tennessee in the second half. I think LSU will score. I think Alabama will score, and therefore I think it's a close game into the third quarter, into the fourth quarter, and that's where these two coaching staffs and teams have shined, and they're going to have to do it on the brightest stage they've been on all year, because make no mistake, the team that loses this game has no chance to win the national championship. None. And both of those teams, no matter what Brian Kelly told you in August, had those aspirations when they laced it up on Labor Day weekend. Always the case in Tuscaloosa. Should be the case more often than not in Baton Rouge. And when you've got a quarterback who's in the top 5 of the betting rung of Heisman Trophy candidates, and you got a chance to beat Alabama and likely Georgia moving forward, I think you're still in the mix. It's a longer shot, but you're in the mix. LSU gets a third loss, forget it. Bama gets a second loss, forget it. Big one coming up on Thursday in Bryant-Denny, on Saturday in Bryant-Denny Stadium. Hey, thanks for watching Hunt on LSU. Before you get out of here, do us a couple of favors. Hit that like button, leave your comments below, and subscribe to the channel for all your Fighting Tiger football talk. See you next time.